Hi, I'm Erica, and I'm a 17th century Quaker historian. Researching and writing about lesser known people in history is very rewarding. Piecing together a life that's been relatively unknown for centuries is pretty cool. But that doesn't mean I don't get historian envy from time to time. I absolutely do. I gotta say, I envy those historians whose subjects have portraits. Yes, portraits. Everyone loves putting a face with a name. I have no idea what most of my Quakers look like. Now, there is one in particular that I've been researching for nearly 15 years, and when I think of him, I imagine that he looked like Henry Cavill, but with a hat. However, there is one early Quaker who has been immortalized in portraiture many times, and that's George Fox. This isn't terribly surprising. Fox and Quakerism go hand in hand. He is, for all intents and purposes, the main dude. Last year, there was a great article for the Library of the Society of Friends in London by Melissa Atkinson on the evolution of George Fox's image. I'll link it for you. She writes about the various engravings and paintings of George Fox. I thought I would share with you some of my favorites with some of my own commentary. This isn't going to be academic at all. I'm basically just going to say what comes into my head. Without further ado, in no real particular order. Okay, now this is classic George Fox. What I like most about this portrait is the hat. It's a fine hat. Fox has strong features here. Dare I say, he's a bit handsome. Would I rot in a nasty 17th century prison for him? Maybe. This George, I shall call this shifty George Fox. Obviously, it's sort of working from the previous image, but there's something very different about the eyes here, and I don't think I like it. This is another fairly well-known portrait, hatless. This George Fox is obviously older and has seen some stuff. I like his face here. There's something almost comforting about it. Now we're going from hatless to big hat. Interestingly, with this engraving, I think the eye goes straight to the man in the background. As far as George goes, this hat is bordering on sombrero territory, and as a Mexican myself, this confuses me. See, here's another big hat image, obviously depicting a younger Fox, and he is clearly feeling the spirit here, and I feel like I'm interrupting, so I'm going to move on to the next image, which is quite possibly my favorite image of George Fox. I frigging love this portrait. I find it so charming because it really departs from the other images of Fox. But again, we've got another guy in the background, but this guy looks quite disapproving. And that is on brand with early Quakers for sure. This man, who may or may not be George Fox, looks quite earnest, and again, we've got another solid hat moment. I approve. But the burning question we're left with is, do any of these resemble the real George Fox? As Atkinson stated in her article, none of these portraits have been authenticated to have been made during Fox's life. But it is very cool that so many images do exist. Do you have a favorite historical portrait? Tell me all about it in the comments.